The pounding on the door rumbled like thunder at 2 a.m., tearing me from my sleep with my heart in my throat. It was my son, Roger, his eyes bloodshot, and a crumpled document in his hand. I'm Grace. I'm 69 years old, and I ran a hardware store for 4 decades, so I know how to distinguish a real emergency from a scam, even if the person trying to scam me came out of my own womb. He thought that seeing me in my nightgown and with my hair a mess meant I would sign my own sentence, but he forgot that I was the one who taught him how to walk. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to focus my eyes while fumbling for my glasses on the nightstand. The room was in shadow, barely lit by the hallway light that cut in aggressively because Roger had left the door wide open. There was no "Hi, Mom," or "How are you?" Just that agitated breathing, that stale smell of cheap cigarettes and desperation that had been following him everywhere lately. "Sign here, Mom. It's urgent." "It's for the import business I told you about. I need a guarantor right now, or I lose the opportunity," he said, shoving a cheap pen into my hand and pointing to a line at the bottom of a page full of fine print. My hand trembled, not from fear, but from the weakness that comes with being woken up so abruptly at my age. I put on my glasses. Roger was tapping his foot on the floor, impatient, as if he were waiting for a bus and not asking his mother to save his hide. "Wait, son, let me read it," I said, my voice raspy with sleep. "There's no time to read," he yelled, and the echo of his rudeness bounced off the walls of this house that his father and I built brick by brick. "Trust me for once in your life. It's just a formality to release some merchandise at customs. If I don't sign digitally before 3 a.m., I lose the investment." I almost fell for it. I almost gave in to the pressure of seeing him so distressed. But then my fingers that have counted thousands of screws and reviewed hundreds of invoices at Ironclad Hardware, touched the paper. It wasn't common paper. It was bond paper, thick, with texture. And when I squinted at the header, I saw the watermark of a notary public, Quitclaim deed, irrevocable transfer of real property. The cold I felt didn't come from the open window. It ran down my spine, freezing my soul. It wasn't a customs formality. It wasn't a co-signer agreement for a business. My son, my only son, had entered my bedroom in the dead of night, taking advantage of my sleep and my old age to get me to give him my house, the house where he grew up, the house that is my only asset. "This is the deed to the house, Roger," I said, and I was surprised by how steady my voice sounded, even though inside I was crumbling. He went pale first, then red with fury. He snatched the paper from my hands, not to hide it, but to shove it back in my face, pointing violently at the signature line. "It's the same thing, Mom. It's just to put it up as collateral. They aren't going to take it from you. I need capital, don't you understand? You've already lived your life. You're locked up here with your cats and your plants. And I'm trying to build a future. Sign it once and for all." I looked him in the eyes, those same eyes that used to look at me with adoration when I bandaged his scraped knees. Now I saw only greed and deep contempt. He saw me as a nuisance, like an old piece of furniture that took up too much space and was worth money. "I'll review it tomorrow, son." "Documents aren't signed at this hour," I said, placing the pen on the table with a calm I didn't feel. Roger let out a scream of frustration, kicked the frame of my door, and stormed out in a fury. "You're selfish, always thinking about yourself. I hope you choke on your house," he bellowed from the hallway. I heard the front door slam. Seconds later, silence returned to the house, but peace was gone forever. I remained sitting on the bed with my hands clasped in my lap, listening to the tick-tock of the wall clock. I didn't cry. A long time ago, I learned that tears don't solve money problems or betrayals. When my husband, Frank, died and left me alone with the business and the debts, I didn't cry, I worked. And now, facing the biggest betrayal of my life, I wasn't going to cry either. I got up and went to the kitchen. I made myself a cup of chamomile tea, even though I knew it wouldn't calm me down. While the water boiled, I looked around. We remodeled this kitchen 5 years ago with my savings. I chose the tiles myself. Every corner of this house has my history, my sweat. And Roger wanted to snatch it from me with a scribble at 2 a.m. I thought about all the times I had helped him. The college degree he quit halfway through, the car he crashed that I had to pay for, the businesses that never prospered. I was always there with the checkbook open and a willing heart, but tonight something broke. Seeing that document, I understood that to him, I am no longer his mother. I am his bank, and one he wants to loot before it closes permanently. I spent the rest of the night awake, sitting in the armchair in the living room, watching the door like a guard dog. I thought a lot. I thought about how I raised him, where I failed, but then I shook my head. No, Grace, don't blame yourself. You gave him values. He decided to throw them in the trash. Guilt is a luxury that old women cannot afford when the wolf is inside the house. When the first rays of the sun began to enter through the window, illuminating the dust floating in the air, I stood up. The pain in my chest was still there, dull and constant, but my mind was clear. I went to the utility room, which Roger never enters because he says it smells like mildew and old things. That's where I keep my toolbox. Not a little plastic kit with a toy screwdriver. I'm talking about my industrial chest, the one I used at the hardware store. I have drills, wrench sets, spare locks, and security cylinders I kept when I closed the business. Roger thinks I'm a little old lady who only knows how to knit and watch soap operas. He forgets that I taught the employees at the hardware store how to rekey a combination in less than 5 minutes. He forgets that my hands, even with age spots and arthritis, know how to handle steel. I took out a set of high-security deadbolts, the Medeco brand, the kind that cost a fortune and are practically pick-proof. I had kept them for a special occasion. How ironic that the special occasion was protecting myself from my own son. I dressed in my work clothes, old but sturdy denim jeans, and a flannel shirt of Frank's that I still keep. I tied my gray hair back in a tight bun. I looked in the mirror. I had dark circles under my eyes and pale skin, but in my eyes, there was a hard, metallic glint. It was the Grace from the hardware store, the one who negotiated with tricky suppliers and didn't let anyone intimidate her. I took the screwdriver and walked to the front door. The cold metal of the tool in my hand gave me confidence. I started unscrewing the old lock. Every turn of the screw was a liberation. I was removing Roger from my life, piece by piece. He had a key to this door. He came and went as he pleased. He took food from the fridge, used the washing machine, brought his noisy friends over. That key was his symbol of power over me and my space. As I worked, I remembered the look on his face last night. There was no love, no respect, only urgency and greed. If I had signed, today I would be on the street, or perhaps he would let me live here as a squatter in my own home until he decided to sell it. I shivered just thinking about it. The old lock hit the floor with a dry thud. I picked it up and looked at it with contempt. It was worn out, loose, like our relationship. I threw it in the trash can without a second thought. I began installing the new one. My hands remembered the movements by heart. Align, insert, screw. The mechanism made a satisfying click as it snapped into place. It was solid, heavy, shiny, an impassable barrier. But I didn't stop there. I went to the back door, the one leading to the patio, and changed that one too. I went to the garage door, changed the cylinder. I went through my house like a general fortifying her castle before a siege. My joints ached, I was sweating, but I didn't stop until every entry to my home had a new deadbolt, one for which Roger did not have a key. It was 10 a.m. when I finished. I sat on the front step, wiping the grease from my hands with an old rag. The sun was already high, and the neighborhood was awake. Mrs. Higgins, my neighbor across the street, came out to sweep her sidewalk and waved to me. I returned the greeting with a tired smile. She didn't know that last night I almost lost everything. Nobody knows. The shame of having a son like that is carried inside, like a silent disease. But the shame was transforming into something else, into rage, into dignity. I got up and went inside the house, closed the door, and threw the new deadbolt. The metallic sound resonated with authority. Clack. I was locked in, yes, but I was safe. I made myself a hearty breakfast, eggs with ham and very strong coffee. I needed strength. I knew Roger would come back. He would return believing that with the light of day, I would be more docile, more manipulable. He would return with fake apologies or more shouting, expecting to find the door open as always. Expecting to find the selfless mother who always forgives. While I ate, my cell phone rang. Him. Son. He appeared on the screen in an old photo where he was smiling, hugging me at a birthday party. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. He called again, and again I didn't answer. I finished my coffee and went to my desk. I took out a sheet of printer paper and a thick black marker. I wrote a message short, precise, without sentimentality. In business, I learned that clear accounts preserve friendships, and although the friendship with my son was broken, the accounts were going to be clearer than ever. I took some masking tape and stuck the paper on the outside of the front door, right at eye level. Then I went back inside and sat in the living room armchair, directly facing the entrance, to wait. It didn't take long. I heard the engine of his car, that used sports car he bought with money he didn't have, the slam of the car door, his hurried footsteps on the walkway. I heard the sound of his keys jingling, the sound of the key entering the lock or trying to enter. What the? I heard his stifled voice on the other side of the wood. The key didn't fit. Of course not. He struggled. He pushed the door with his shoulder. "Mom, open up! The lock is jammed!" he yelled, banging on the wood with his fist. I remained motionless with my hands clasped, breathing deeply. My heart beat fast, but my legs didn't move to open the door for him. There was a sudden silence. I knew that in that moment he had seen the paper taped to the door. I imagined his eyes scanning the black letters, his brain processing what they meant. I imagined his face transforming from confusion to pure anger. The paper read, "Roger, the owner of this house has woken up. If you want to enter, you will have to knock like a visitor. And if you want my signature, you will have to bring me something more than lies." "Mom, open this door right now. I know you're in there," he roared. And this time the knocks were kicks. "You can't do this to me. I have my stuff in there. It's my house too, isn't it?" "Son," I whispered to myself in the gloom of the living room, caressing the armrest of my chair. "It never was yours, and as long as I breathe, it never will be by force." The blows continued, becoming more violent, attracting the attention of the neighbors, but I didn't move. I looked at my hands, those working hands he underestimated. I had changed the physical locks, but more importantly, I had changed the deadbolt on my guilt. Suddenly, I knew this was just the beginning. Roger wouldn't give up so easily. He is stubborn like his father, but without Frank's decency. He's going to try to get in the hard way. He's going to try to scare me. He's going to use the family. He's going to say I'm crazy. I got up from the chair and went to the landline. I had to make a call. Not to the police, not yet. I had to call Mr. Sterling, the old attorney, my husband's friend, the only one who knows where the real papers for the hardware store are, and more importantly, the will that Roger thinks he knows, but which I changed 6 months ago without telling anyone. I dialed the number with determination. While I listened to the ringtone, I peeked through the window hidden behind the curtain. Roger was kicking a pot of geraniums in the entryway, red with rage, screaming into his cell phone. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling," I said when they answered. "This is Grace. I need to see you urgently. Yes, it seems the war has begun, and I need to sharpen my weapons." I hung up the phone and felt a strange calm. I had spent years being the kind widow, the accommodating mother, the little old lady from the closed hardware store. Today, that woman had ceased to exist. Today, Grace decided that Grace had run out. The sound of the doorbell resonated in the house, insistent, furious. Roger wasn't going to leave, and neither was I. I smoothed my flannel shirt, lifted my chin, and walked toward the door, not to open it, but to look through the peephole at the face of my enemy and prepare for the battle that was approaching. Seeing Roger's car drive away was like watching an infection leave my body, painful but necessary to start healing. The silence that remained in the house wasn't peaceful. It was that tense stillness left after an earthquake when you check the walls looking for cracks. I stood in the hallway with the screwdriver still in my back pocket, feeling the weight of the house on my shoulders. I couldn't just sit there. The adrenaline of the confrontation was turning into a cold anxiety that prickled my hands. I needed to know what I was really facing. Roger had said he needed the signature to release merchandise, but his eyes said something else. His eyes screamed unpayable debts. I walked toward the room he used when he deigned to visit me, or when he fought with a girlfriend and needed a roof and a hot meal. I pushed the door open. The smell hit me first. A mixture of dirty laundry, cheap cologne, and that metallic scent of fear that desperate people sweat out. I turned on the light. The room was a disaster. There were clothes thrown everywhere, empty pizza boxes, and crumpled papers on the unmade bed. Roger was always messy, but this was different. This was the chaos of a mind that no longer finds a way out. I approached the nightstand. There was an ashtray filled to the brim, even though I have forbidden him to smoke inside the house. Beside it, a stack of unopened envelopes, or so they seemed. I picked them up. They were collection notices, not from normal banks, but from those finance companies that lend money with usurious interest rates and break your legs if you don't pay. Final notice: precautionary seizure, immediate legal action. The dates were recent, the amounts chilling. My son wasn't investing in imports. My son was patching a hole by digging a deeper one, and I was the dirt he planned to fill it with. I sat on the edge of that messy bed, feeling a deep nausea. It wasn't just greed, it was panic. Roger was cornered. And a cornered beast is capable of anything, even biting the hand that fed it all its life. I checked the drawers. In the back, under some socks, I found a blue folder. I opened it. Inside were copies of my ID, my birth certificate, and a draft of a broad and general power of attorney in his name, dated 2 months ago. I froze. He had been planning this for months. Those Sundays he came to eat and told me, "Mom, the soup is delicious." While hugging me, he was actually calculating how long it would take to strip me of everything. The betrayal wasn't an impulse of a desperate night at 2 a.m. It was a calculated strategy. I closed the folder with force. The sadness I felt evaporated, replaced by a calculating coldness. If he had been planning a war in secret, he didn't know who he was messing with. Roger grew up watching his mother behind the counter, ringing up screws and selling paint. He never saw what happened in the back office. He never saw how I negotiated with suppliers who wanted to rip me off for being a woman, nor how I dealt with corrupt inspectors looking for bribes. I got up and went to my own room. I knelt on the closet floor, pushing aside the boxes of old shoes where I keep family photos. I lifted the carpet in the right corner. There, almost invisible if you don't know what to look for, was a loose floorboard. Frank taught me how to make this hiding place 30 years ago, when we started handling heavy cash at the hardware store and didn't fully trust the banks during the recession. I pulled out a heavy metal box, paint peeling, with the logo of a tool brand that no longer exists. I put it on the bed and looked for the key I always wear on a silver chain under my clothes, next to my scapular. The click of the lock was music to my ears. Inside wasn't just money, although there was a good wad of bills for emergencies that I've been gathering from my rents and pension. The important thing was under the money. I took out a hardcover ledger, black, with worn corners. We called it the Book of Favors. For 40 years at Ironclad Hardware, Frank and I didn't just sell tools. We helped build this town. We extended credit for materials when no one else would. To the lady who now owns the biggest restaurant in the area, we gave all the piping and wiring on credit when she started without a dime. To the engineer who is now the director of public works, we forgave a large debt when his wife got sick. To the police chief, we gave a job to his wayward son so he wouldn't end up in jail. I opened the book. The pages were yellowed, filled with Frank's jagged handwriting and my own, rounder script. Names, dates, details. Roger thinks power is fast money and new cars. He doesn't understand that true power, the kind that lasts, is relationships, loyalty, and the memory of decent people. I ran my fingers over the names. Many were gone, but their children were here, and good people don't forget who extended a hand when they were in the mud. Roger had the brute force of youth and the desperation of debts. I had something much more dangerous. I had the history of this community written in black ink. I also took out the original deed to the house, the real one, with its old stamps and yellowed paper that smells like history and my will. The one Roger thinks says everything to my beloved son. I tore it right there, in 2, in 4, in 8 pieces. Watching the paper tear hurt less than I expected. It was dead paper. The new will, the one I drafted with Mr. Sterling months ago when I started noticing money missing from my purse every time Roger came over, was safe at the law office. I looked at myself in the full-length mirror on the closet door. I saw a short woman with gray hair and a face furrowed by wrinkles deep as canyons. I was wearing my dead husband's flannel shirt and jeans stained with locksmith grease. What did Roger see when he looked at me? He saw an old woman, a fragile senior who gets tired climbing stairs, who sometimes repeats stories and gets sentimental over old photos. He saw easy prey. He saw a biological obstacle between him and the money he believed he deserved by right of blood. He forgot that these wrinkles aren't from weakness. They are from resilience. Every line on my face is a crisis overcome. I survived recessions, Frank's death, the competition from the big box hardware chains that came to town. I kept the business afloat when everyone said a widow couldn't handle a man's world. I carried bags of cement when employees didn't show up. I learned to use a computer at 60 so as not to get left behind. People see me at the market picking tomatoes and say, "Oh, look at Grace, how sweet." They give up their seat on the bus, speak to me slowly as if I were deaf or dumb, and I let them do it. It's a tactical advantage. Nobody expects the sweet little grandma to have a battle plan and an arsenal hidden under the bed. Roger made the classic mistake of the arrogant, underestimating his opponent based on appearance. He thought that because my hands shake a little when pouring coffee, they would also shake when defending what's mine. He doesn't know that my pulse trembles from age, but my will is tempered steel. I sat at the desk and opened the book of favors. I looked for a number. It wasn't Mr. Sterling's. I would see him later. I looked for the number of Jim, the manager of the local community bank. We went to school together. He knows what every cent in my account cost. I dialed the number on the landline. Community Bank of the South. "Connect me with management, please." "Tell him it's Grace, from the hardware store." I waited a few seconds. "Grace! What a miracle! How are you, woman?" Jim's voice sounded warm. "I'm fine, Jim busy. Listen to me carefully, because I don't have much time. I need you to freeze my accounts. All of them." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Did something happen? Was your card stolen?" "Something like that," I said, looking out the window toward the empty street. "I need you to cancel the additional cards. Yes, the one Roger has too, especially that one. And I want to change all online banking access codes. No one moves a cent without my signature in person and my thumbprint. Do you understand me? No one." "Understood, Grace. I'm doing it right now. Does Roger know about this?" "He's going to find out as soon as he tries to pay for his breakfast," I replied coldly. "And Jim, if he goes to the bank, don't give him explanations. Just tell him to talk to his mother." "Done." "Take care, Grace. You know we're here for you." I hung up. First strike delivered. Roger lived off the supplementary card I gave him for emergencies, which he used as his personal petty cash fund. I had just cut off his oxygen supply, but that wasn't enough. I needed to armor myself legally before he tried something crazy, like declaring me mentally incompetent. I've seen cases like that, children dragging their parents before a judge claiming they can no longer reason well, just to take control of their assets. I took a clean sheet of paper and started making a list. My mind, which Roger thought clouded by old age, was functioning with the precision of a Swiss watch. Law office. Revoke any previous power of attorney, just in case he forged my signature on a prior document. Armor the property with an irrevocable life estate. Security. Install cameras. I know the boy who installs them today. I gave him his first drill on credit. Community. Activate the support network. I don't need bodyguards. I need eyes on the street. I looked at the clock. 11 a.m. Roger was probably furious, trying to use the blocked card at some coffee shop. His shame would be public. Good. Let him feel a little of the humiliation he tried to put me through. I got up and went to the bathroom. I washed my face with cold water, removing the traces of the bad night. I took off my work clothes and looked in the closet for my navy blue pantsuit, the one I used for Chamber of Commerce meetings. I put on an impeccable white blouse, starched just how I like it. I put on a little makeup, just enough to hide the dark circles and highlight my eyes. I combed my hair back without leaving a single hair out of place. I put on my jewelry, not much, just the pearls Frank gave me for our silver anniversary and my wedding ring. And, of course, my reading glasses hanging around my neck on a gold chain. When I finished, I looked at myself again. The frightened woman in a nightgown from 2 a.m. was gone. The laborer with the screwdriver was gone. Standing before me was Mrs. Grace, the matriarch, the businesswoman, the master of her destiny. I took my leather purse, put in the book of favors, the folder with evidence of Roger's debts, and the real deeds. I left the room and walked down the hall. Passing the living room, I saw Roger's portrait from when he graduated high school. He was smiling with that innocence he has since lost. I felt a stab of pain. Of course, he is my son. A mother's love doesn't turn off with a switch, not even with betrayal. But a mother's love also implies teaching lessons, and sometimes the most important lessons are the ones that hurt the most. Roger needed to learn that in this life, nothing is free, much less his mother's dignity. I reached the front door. The new deadbolt shone with security. I opened it. The midday sun greeted me with force. The street was quiet. Mrs. Higgins was still sweeping, now chatting with the mailman. Seeing me come out, so dressed up and determined, she stopped. "Oh, Grace, how elegant. Going to a party?" she asked with curiosity. I closed the door behind me and tested that it was locked tight. I turned to her and smiled. But it wasn't my sweet grandma smile. It was a sharp smile of someone who knows things others ignore. "No, Clara, I'm not going to a party," I said, hitching my purse onto my shoulder. "I'm going to do some general cleaning, and I'm going to start by taking out the trash that has been accumulating in my life for years." I walked toward my old sedan, parked in the driveway. As I opened the car door, I saw Roger's sports car in the distance at the corner. He was parked there, watching. He saw me come out. I saw how he revved the engine violently, ready to intercept me. I sighed, put the key in the ignition, and started it. The engine roared with strength, responding to the care I have always given it. "Come if you want, son," I murmured, watching in the rearview mirror as his car approached. "Come and try to hunt me, but be careful, because the old lioness still has teeth, and today she is hungry for justice." I pressed the accelerator and went out onto the main avenue, ready to prove to the world, and above all to my son, that Grace is just my name, not my weakness. I drove with my eyes fixed on the road, but my attention was glued to the rearview mirror. Roger's sports car zigzagged behind me like a furious wasp, accelerating and braking, trying to intimidate me with the roar of his engine. In other times, seeing my son drive like that would have given me a nervous breakdown. I would have pulled over to ask him what was wrong. Not today. Today, his desperation was my compass. It confirmed I was heading in the right direction. I didn't head to the police station or my sister's house. I went straight downtown, to the street with the old law offices, where buildings smell of humidity and fresh ink. I parked in front of Mr. Sterling's office. Roger stopped abruptly behind me, almost hitting my rear bumper. I saw him flailing inside his car, punching the steering wheel. I knew he wouldn't dare cause a scene here. In broad daylight, in front of the offices of the most respected lawyers in town, Roger is a closet coward. His violence blooms in the darkness of my house, not in public where he has an image of an entrepreneur to maintain. I got out of the car calmly, adjusting my blazer. He rolled down the window. "Mom, stop the theatrics," he yelled, careful to keep the volume down. "We have to talk." "You blocked the cards." I looked at him over the top of my sunglasses without stopping. "The bank opens at 9, Roger. If you have complaints, take a number and get in line," I said, and kept walking toward the building entrance. I heard him slam his car door, but he didn't follow me. He knew he couldn't go in there. Mr. Sterling was the one who read him the riot act when he crashed his father's car at 18. He has a reverential fear of that old lawyer. I entered the office. The air conditioning was strong, a blessed contrast to the heat of the street and my own blood. The secretary, a woman my age named Carmela, looked up and smiled. "Grace, what a surprise. Mr. Sterling is on a call, but it's urgent, Carmela. Tell him it's a matter of life or death for my estate." I interrupted, leaning my hands on her varnished wooden desk. 5 minutes later, I was sitting in the leather chair across from Sterling. I placed the folder I took from Roger's room and the pieces of my previous will on the desk. "I want to revoke everything, Arthur," I told him, using his first name. "Powers of attorney, wills, letters of instruction, everything that bears Roger's name is annulled as of this second." Sterling, a bald, meticulous man who has seen the worst of families in this town, reviewed the papers regarding Roger's debt. He whistled softly. "Grace, these aren't normal debts. These promissory notes are from dangerous people. No wonder he's desperate for the house." "I know," I replied, feeling a lump in my throat. "That's why I need to armor the property. I want to establish a life estate right now, but with a strict clause preventing sale or transfer, and I want to draft a new will." "Who will be the heir?" he asked, pen in hand. I remained silent for a moment, looking at the diplomas hanging on the wall. I thought of my son waiting outside like a vulture. "Public charity," I said firmly, and a portion for an educational trust for the children of my former employees. Roger won't see a cent unless he proves, with toxicology and financial tests, that he has been clean and solvent for 5 years, and even then, he will receive a monthly allowance, never the capital. Sterling nodded, writing furiously. It's a harsh measure, Grace. No, Arthur. It's the only measure that can save him. If I give him the house, he loses it in a week, and they might even kill him for the debts. If he has nothing, he stops being a target for those sharks. Poverty will be his shield. I left the law office an hour later with a bundle of stamped documents under my arm. I felt lighter, as if I had taken off rusty armor and put on one made of Kevlar. Roger was still there, leaning against his car, smoking. Seeing me, he threw down the cigarette and approached, trying a different tactic, the victim. Mom, please, I don't even have gas money. My card was declined at the gas station. It was incredibly embarrassing. What were you doing in there? I stopped 2 yards from him. The midday sun beat down on us like lead. I'm fixing the mess you let your life become, son. What are you talking about? I just need the signature. I swear I'll return the deeds in a month. The deeds are no longer useful for what you want. I lied with a technical truth. The house is an administrative process. No one is going to accept that guarantee. His eyes widened enormously. Confusion began to cloud his rage. What did you do? Mom, you can't sell the house without telling me. I didn't sell it. I protected it. And about the money. I opened my purse and took out a $20 bill. I held it out. Here. For gas and a sandwich. It's the last thing you will receive from my hand until you show me a pay stub from an honest job. Roger looked at the bill as if it were an insult. His face turned red. I don't want your charity. I want what belongs to me. What belongs to you is what you work for, Roger. Nothing else. At the hardware store, if you didn't carry bags, you didn't get paid on Saturday. Seems you forgot that basic rule. I let the bill fall to the ground because he wouldn't take it. I got into my car and started it. In the rearview mirror, I saw him hesitate for a second, and then, with rage and shame, bend down to pick the money off the pavement. That image hurt more than any blow, but I accelerated. Compassion without discipline was only feeding the monster that was eating him from the inside. My next stop wasn't home. I went to the wholesale district. That is where the heart of gossip and information beats in this town. I parked and walked among the fruit and vegetable stalls, greeting the merchants. Everyone knows me. Grace, those screws you sold me the other day were great. Grace. How's retirement going? I reached the butcher counter of Mr. Beto. He owes me a big favor from the book. I lent him money for his granddaughter's surgery 10 years ago and never charged interest. Only the principal. And a hug. Grace! Beto wiped his bloody hands on his apron. What can we get you today? A nice cut for the boy? I leaned over the counter, lowering my voice. No, Beto. Today I come to ask you for something delicate. His smile vanished, and he leaned toward me, attentive. Whatever it is, boss. You name it. Roger is in over his head, Beto. He owes a lot of money and is going around borrowing in the family's name, using Frank's memory. I need you to spread the word among the guys at the market and the merchants in the area. What do I tell them? Tell them that Roger is cut off by me, that no one lends him a dime thinking I'm going to cover it, that if they credit him anything, it's at their own risk, because I won't cover a single cent. And tell them, I paused, calculating the impact of my words, that if they see him selling things from my house, they are to notify me immediately. Beto nodded gravely. He understood the message. In this town, the word of a matriarch is respected more than a bank contract. If I removed my moral backing from Roger, I closed the doors of the informal economy to him. He could no longer ask for credit at the store or loans from acquaintances. Count on it, Grace. That boy needs a good scare to straighten out. More than a scare, Beto. He needs to hit rock bottom. And I am removing the cushion. I left the market feeling the looks of curiosity transform into looks of complicity. The net was closing. Roger thought his problem was with me, a crazy old woman. He didn't know he was fighting against 40 years of reputation and alliances. My last stop before going home was with Charlie, the systems tech. He's the son of my old cashier, a brilliant kid who runs his business from a van full of cables. Grace? Security cameras for the house? He asked, surprised, while checking his inventory in the back of his van. Yes, Charlie. 4. High definition, with night vision, and recording audio. And I need them today. I'll pay double for the urgency. No need for double, Grace, but is something wrong? Are you afraid of burglars? I looked him in the eye. I'm afraid they'll try to enter with a key, Charlie. I want a camera pointing directly at the front door, another at the patio, and one hidden in the living room. And I want the monitoring app only on my cell phone. No one else can have access. Understood. Charlie caught the hint. Everyone in town knows Roger is my only family. Understood. I'll be there in an hour. I returned home with an empty stomach but a full mind. Upon entering, silence welcomed me again, but this time it felt different. It was no longer the silence of a victim. It was the silence of a command post before battle. I made a quick sandwich and sat in the living room to wait for Charlie. While I ate, my cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Roger. It wasn't a text, it was a photo of the facade of Ironclad Hardware, which is now an empty storefront with a for rent sign. Below the photo, he wrote, "I'm going to sell the building. I have an old power of attorney you surely forgot to revoke. Checkmate, Mom." I smiled, a sad but satisfied smile. "Poor fool," I replied. "The building hasn't been in my name for 5 years, son. It is in the name of an LLC where you don't appear. And that old power of attorney? I revoked it today at 9:15 a.m. before Mr. Sterling. The notary system is already updated. If you try to use that paper, they will arrest you for fraud. It's not checkmate. You're barely learning to move the pawns." I saw the 3 dots indicating he was typing. Then they disappeared. Appeared again. Disappeared again. No answer. The digital silence of his defeat was deafening. Charlie arrived promptly. While he drilled the walls to install the cameras, I dedicated myself to packing Roger's things that remained in his room. I didn't throw them in the trash. I folded them carefully and put them in cardboard boxes. His clothes, his old football trophies, his magazines. It was a symbolic act. I was evicting the boy he was to force the man he is to be born once and for all. When Charlie finished, he taught me how to use the app on my phone. I saw my entryway in real time, crisp and clear. "Thanks, kid." I paid him in cash, taking bills from my secret safe. "Anything you need, call me, Grace." As soon as Charlie left, evening fell. Shadows lengthened in the living room. I sat in my armchair with my phone in hand, watching the screen. At 7 p.m., Roger's car appeared on camera 1. He parked in front of the house, but he wasn't alone. He got out of the car, accompanied by a short, stout man carrying a tool case. A locksmith. My heart raced, but I didn't get up. I watched the screen like someone watching a thriller. I saw Roger gesticulate, pointing at the door. The locksmith approached, inspected my new Medico lock, and shook his head. Roger insisted, pulling out his empty wallet. I knew it, and offering promises. The locksmith took out a pick, trying to manipulate the cylinder. At that moment, I pressed the microphone button on my phone app. My voice came out through the small speaker of the camera installed above the door, metallic and powerful, like the voice of God. "Good evening, gentlemen." I saw both men jump in fright. Roger looked everywhere, seeking the source of the sound. "That is a high-security lock. Grade 1, I continued speaking from my armchair, watching their panicked faces on my screen. And the gentleman trying to force it is being recorded in high definition. The video is uploading automatically to the cloud, and a copy is being sent to the police chief, who is— The locksmith dropped his tools as if they burned. "Hey, buddy, you told me you lost your keys and your mom was traveling," the locksmith said, backing away. "I don't want trouble with the law. It's my house. Don't listen to her. She's a crazy old woman." Roger screamed at the camera, eyes wild. "Mr. Locksmith," I said with a calm voice, "I suggest you leave. My son has no money to pay you. His cards are canceled, and his reputation in town is 0. If you open that door, you will be an accomplice to breaking and entering." The man didn't think twice. He packed his things in seconds. "See ya, pal. Fix your family drama, but don't drag me into it," he told Roger, and practically ran to his van. Roger was left alone on the sidewalk under the yellow light of the street lamp and the red infrared eye of my camera. He looked directly at the lens. There was no longer fury in his face. There was fear, deep fear. For the first time in his life, he realized his mother was not an endless resource, but a force of nature that had turned against him. "Mom," he whispered, and the microphone picked up his broken voice. "What am I going to do? They're going to kill me if I don't pay." I felt tears run down my cheeks in the darkness of the living room, but my voice came out firm through the speaker. "What you're going to do, Roger, is stop digging. Leave. The boxes with your things are in the driveway. The combination to the padlock is your father's birth date. You have 5 minutes to take them before I activate the silent alarm." I saw him hesitate. I saw him tremble. Finally, he walked toward the driveway, defeated, shoulders slumped. I had won the battle. Yes, I had protected my house. But watching my son load the boxes of his childhood into his sports car that smelled of debt, I knew the war was just beginning. He had just lost his refuge, and I had just lost the innocence of believing that a mother's love can fix everything. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you need strategy, iron, and the courage to close the door so the other person learns to open their own. When his car disappeared from the screen, I turned off the phone. The house was silent, safe, armored. But that night, as I prepared to sleep, I put the screwdriver on the nightstand, right next to the Bible. Roger was cornered, and I knew his desperation still had fangs. "Rest, Grace," I told myself in the mirror. "Tomorrow, it's your turn to show the world who you really are." And for the first time in years, I slept deeply, not as a lonely widow, but as the general of my own life. 3 days passed since Roger took his boxes like a dog with its tail between its legs. 3 days of a silence that wasn't peace, but the gossipy calm that precedes a storm. I didn't stay still. My house became my headquarters. From the living room window, cell phone in hand, monitoring the cameras, I saw how the ecosystem of the neighborhood changed. The neighbors, alerted by the rumor Mr. Beto released at the market, passed by looking at my facade with respect, as if my house had suddenly grown 2 stories. But I knew the real enemy wasn't the gossip, or even Roger. The enemy was the owners of those signatures on the promissory notes my son had signed. Faceless people, the kind who don't ring the doorbell but kick down the door. It was Tuesday afternoon. Heat rose from the asphalt, making the air shimmer. I was finishing reviewing some old inventories when the camera app sent a sound alert. It wasn't the doorbell. It was a dry, violent screech of tires, right in front of my gate. I looked at the screen. A massive black SUV with tinted windows had pulled up onto my sidewalk, blocking the exit. My heart skipped a beat, not from fear of dying, but from that cold adrenaline I felt when a difficult shipment arrived at the hardware store and had to be sorted out. The back door of the SUV opened, and they shoved someone toward the street. He fell to his knees on the hot concrete. It was Roger. His shirt was torn, and his lip was split. 2 men got out behind him. One was a mountain of muscle with tattoos on his neck. The other, shorter and thin, wore a suit that pretended to be elegant but shone with synthetic cheapness. "Open up, Roger!" yelled the one in the suit, and his voice leaked through the camera microphone into my living room. "Tell your mommy to come out and sign, or we're going to break your other hand." Roger was crying. I saw it on the screen. A 40-year-old man, reduced to a scared child. He got up with difficulty and approached the intercom. "Mom! Mom, please!" he begged, pressing his face to the camera. "They're serious. Give them the house, Mom. They're going to kill me." I felt a sharp pain in my chest, as if I had been stabbed with an ice pick. Seeing my son bleeding, humiliated, twisted my insides. The mother Grace wanted to run out, open the door, pull him into my arms, and give them everything they asked for just so he would stop crying. But the woman Grace, the one who has survived 69 years in this hard world, stopped her. If I opened that door out of fear, we both lost. If I yielded now, Roger would never stop being a victim, and I would become destitute. I took a deep breath, smoothed my skirt, grabbed the book of favors I had ready on the table, and hung the house keys around my neck. I wasn't going to speak through the intercom. I was going out. I walked toward the front door. My steps echoed in the empty hallway. Click, clack, clack. I opened the security deadbolts. Clack, clack. The metallic sound was my declaration of war. I opened the wooden door and then the metal security gate. I stepped out onto the small porch, but I didn't open the electric gate to the street. I stood there behind the black wrought iron bars, standing with my back straight, looking at the three men. Silence became heavy. The sun hit my face, but I didn't blink. Well, said the man in the cheap suit, approaching the gate with a smile that looked like a hyena's grimace. Mrs. Grace, I presume, your son has told us much about your generosity. Roger was lying on the sidewalk clutching his ribs. Seeing me, his eyes filled with desperate hope. Mom, give them what they ask, he yelled. I ignored him. My gaze was pinned on the man in the suit. I don't know who you are, I said with a calm voice, that voice I used to return defective merchandise without accepting no for an answer, but you are blocking my driveway and dirtying my sidewalk. You have 1 minute to get lost before things get ugly. The big guy let out a laugh that sounded like Rolling Stones. The skinny one in the suit stepped closer, grabbing the bars of my gate with his ringed hands. Lady, I think you don't understand the situation. Your son owes us $80,000 plus interest. You are going to sign the transfer of this property right now before a notary we have on the way, or we are coming in. And believe me, those new locks you put on won't stop us. Coming in? I asked, arching an eyebrow. Into my house to collect what's ours. I approached the gate, standing inches from his face. I could smell his cheap cologne and stale tobacco. Look, son, I said, lowering my tone so only he could hear me. Do you think you are dealing with a scared little old lady who watches soap operas? That was my son's mistake. Don't make the same one. I took my cell phone out of my pocket and held it up. Right now, there are 3 cameras recording your faces, your SUV's license plates, and the assault on my son. The signal is transmitting in real time to a secure server. But that's the least of it. The guy hesitated, glancing sideways at the cameras Charlie had installed. I don't give a damn about your cameras, he spat, though I saw the doubt in his eyes. You should care more about who is watching those cameras, I continued implacably. Does the name Chief Miller ring a bell? The big guy stopped laughing. The one in the suit tensed up. The precinct captain? Asked the big guy nervously. The very same. His wife is a close friend of mine. I gave them the crib for their first grandson 2 months ago. A half-truth. I had given them credit for the materials to build the baby's room, but the bond was real. Right now, he is receiving the alert. And let me tell you something about Miller. He hates out-of-towners making noise in his sector. The man in the suit let go of the bars and took a step back, evaluating me again. He no longer saw the old lady. He saw the confidence with which I stood. He saw that my hands weren't shaking. Your son signed promissory notes, he said, but his voice had lost its initial arrogance. The debt is real. My son's debt is my son's problem, I replied sharply. This house is mine, my sweat, my bricks. And here, in this town, gambling and vice debts are not collected from the assets of mothers. That is an unwritten rule that even the criminals of the old days respected. It seems you didn't go to that school. Roger, from the ground, looked at me with his mouth open. He had never seen me like this. I was always the conciliator, the one who turned the other cheek. He didn't know I could bite too. Then we take the boy, said the one in the suit, trying to regain control, and I don't guarantee he returns in one piece. That was the moment of truth. My mother's heart screamed. It wanted to yield, but my cold mind knew that if I paid today, tomorrow they would return for more. If I paid today, Roger would never learn. If I paid today, I was signing my death sentence in life. I opened the book of favors I had in my hand. I looked for a page marked with a red paperclip. You aren't taking anyone, I said, reading the paper. You are Miller, right? You operate loans in the North District. Your direct boss is a certain Mr. Bruno. The color drained from the face of the guy in the suit. How do you know? I've had a hardware store for 40 years, son. Everyone passes by my counter. Bricklayers, cops, thieves, and decent people. You hear everything. You know everything. And it turns out Mr. Bruno has a weakness. His mother, Mrs. Bruno. I paused dramatically. The afternoon heat seemed to have stopped. Mrs. Bruno comes to play bingo with me every Thursday at the church hall. I lied with a fluency that scared even me. In reality, I only knew her by sight, but I knew she was a saint to her criminal son. What do you think, mister? Bruno would think if he finds out one of his collectors is threatening his mother's friend at her own home? What do you think he would do to you for disrespecting an elderly lady?" The guy named Miller swallowed hard. He looked at the big guy, who now seemed to want to melt into the asphalt. I had touched the right nerve. In our world, the mother figure is sacred, even for villains, or at least, the fear of the boss's fury is. "No. We didn't know you were an acquaintance of the boss," Miller stammered. "Well, now you know. So you are going to get in that SUV and leave. But the debt, Mrs. Grace. The boss will kill us if we return empty-handed," said Miller, no longer as an aggressor, but as a frightened employee. I looked at Roger. He was wiping the blood from his mouth with the back of his hand, looking at me as if I were an alien. "My son is going to pay," I said. And Roger shuddered. "But he is going to pay with work, not with my house. Tell Mr. Bruno that I am his moral guarantor, not financial. That Roger is going to work, and every week he is going to deposit an amount. If you fail to collect from him the right way, that's your problem. But if you ever stand at my door again, or touch a hair on my family, I call Miller the cop and I tell everything to Mrs. Bruno. Understood?" Miller nodded quickly. He signaled the big guy. "Let's go." They got into the SUV without another word. The engine roared, and they peeled away, burning rubber as if the devil were chasing them. And in a way, he was. An angry mother is worse than the devil. We were left alone. Roger on the sidewalk and me behind the gate. Silence returned, but now it was charged with a brutal static electricity. Roger stood up, swaying. He walked toward the gate. He expected me to open the gate immediately. He expected comfort. "Mom," he sobbed. "Thank you. You saved me. I knew you wouldn't let me die. Open up, please. I need to clean this up." I remained motionless. My hands gripped the book so hard my knuckles were white. "I'm not opening, Roger." He stopped dead with his hand reached toward the doorbell button. "What? But they're gone. I'm hurt, Mom. I'm your son. You are my son, yes. And for that very reason, I'm not opening. I just saved your life, Roger. I used my last cards, my lies, and my reputation so they wouldn't kill you today. But I didn't save you so you could come back and hide under my skirts. Mom, don't talk nonsense. They almost killed me. I need to come into my house." "This isn't your house," I repeated the words that hurt him so much, but were the only medicine that could cure him. "And as long as you continue to be a child playing businessman with other people's money, you will have no roof here." "So what do I do?" he yelled, hitting the bars with frustration. "I have nowhere to go. I have no money. I have an unpayable debt." "You have 2 hands and 2 feet, I replied with a coldness that burned me inside. "And you have your health. You heard the deal I made. You have to pay them, so I suggest you look for a job doing whatever. Carry boxes, wash dishes, sweep streets. Earn the respect you lost." "You are kicking me out onto the street like a dog," he bellowed, and I saw in his eyes that same hatred he had the night he tried to steal the deed. Gratitude lasted as long as it took him to feel safe. "I'm kicking you out into life, Roger. Something I should have done 20 years ago." I put my hand in my skirt pocket and took out a small bottle of alcohol and some gauze pads I had brought with me. Foreseeing this, I passed them through the bars. "Clean your face and go. If they see you here again without working, they will come back. And next time, I won't come out." Roger took the bottle with rage. He looked me in the eyes, looking for some trace of doubt, some sign that I was going to break. But I stood firm as an iron pillar. "I hate you," he whispered. "I know," I said, feeling my heart break into 1,000 pieces, but keeping my head high. "It is better that you hate me on the street than mourn me at my grave after having taken everything from me. Now go." Roger turned around. He walked, dragging his feet toward where he had left his sports car, which now looked like a ridiculous toy in the middle of the brutal reality of his life. I saw him get in, start it, and drive away. Only when his car disappeared from sight did I allow myself to waver. My legs trembled, and I had to hold onto the gate so as not to fall. The tears I had held back came out all at once, hot and bitter. I cried for my son, for the sweet boy he was, and for the broken man he is. I cried for the necessary cruelty of my love, but then I felt a hand on my shoulder. I jumped. It was Mrs. Higgins, the neighbor. She had crossed the street without me noticing. "Grace," she said softly, "we saw everything." I wiped my tears quickly, embarrassed. Clara. It's not what it looks like. Don't explain anything, she interrupted me. And to my surprise, she smiled with admiration. Those people, those types, we're all afraid of them. And you chase them off with a book and 3 shouts. I looked toward the street. Other neighbors had come out. The man from the grocery store, the girl who sells flowers, the mechanic. Everyone was looking at me. There was no pity in their eyes. There was awe. "Mrs. Grace!" shouted the mechanic from his sidewalk, giving a thumbs up. That took guts. I realized something extraordinary. Roger wanted to strip me of my dignity by exposing me, by bringing his problems to my door. But he had achieved the opposite. By defending myself, by defending my house, I had revealed a strength that not even I knew I had, and that the entire neighborhood now recognized. I was no longer the lonely widow. I was the woman who had faced the mafia collectors and won. I breathed deeply, filling my lungs with the afternoon air. The fear was gone. In its place remained an absolute certainty. I had reclaimed my territory. "Thanks, Clara," I said, straightening up and tucking the book of favors under my arm. "But the show is over. I have things to do." I went into my house and closed the gate. The sound of the deadbolt no longer sounded like confinement. It sounded like victory. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands no longer shook. I looked at the phone. I had a message from Mr. Sterling. "All ready, Grace. The trust is armored. No one can touch your estate." And another message. This one from Chief Miller. "My boys told me there was movement on your street. Everything okay, Mrs. Grace?" "Sending a patrol car." I smiled. Turns out my lies weren't such lies after all. Power wasn't just in money or brute force. It was in the ties one weaves throughout life. Thread by thread, favor by favor. Roger wanted to cut those ties with rusty scissors and found that the net was made of steel. That night I ate dinner calmly. There were no knocks on the door, no calls at dawn. The house felt huge, yes, but it no longer felt empty. It was full of me, of my history, of my will. Before going up to sleep, I stopped in front of the hallway mirror. I took off my glasses and looked at my eyes. They were tired, surrounded by wrinkles, but they shone with a new light. "You did the right thing, Grace," I said aloud. "You took away the life jacket so he learns to swim. Now let's see if he survives the tide." I went up the stairs slowly. Tomorrow would be another day. I had to go to the hardware store building not to work, but to see the space. I had an idea going around my head. If Roger wasn't going to inherit the business, maybe it was time for the business to serve something other than making money. Maybe it was time to use my power for something bigger than just defending myself. I lay in my bed with the original deeds under the pillow, not out of fear, but as a reminder. I am the owner of my roof, owner of my bed, and finally, owner of my peace. And woe to anyone who dares to try to change that again. 6 months have passed since that afternoon I faced the collectors at the gate of my house. 6 months since the entire neighborhood saw me not as Frank's widow, but as Grace, the Iron Woman. Today, the sun enters through my kitchen window, illuminating a clean tablecloth and a vase with fresh sunflowers I bought at the market. The house smells of freshly brewed coffee and toast, but it no longer smells of loneliness or fear. The silence that inhabits these walls has changed. It is no longer a void that scares, but a peace that is enjoyed, earned the hard way, and defended tooth and nail. I finish my coffee watching the clock. It is 8 a.m. on a Sunday. Before, this was the hour when I anguished, thinking if Roger would come to ask for money, or if he would wake up hungover in some holding cell. Now it is the hour I prepare to receive him, but on my terms. The doorbell rang promptly. No desperate pounding, no screams, no kicks, just a respectful and brief ding-dong. I got up without rushing, adjusting my light sweater. I walked toward the entrance, listening to the echo of my own footsteps. Upon reaching the door, I looked through the security camera screen, a habit I no longer planned to break. There he was, Roger, but not the Roger in a shiny suit with bloodshot eyes. He wore jeans stained with motor oil and a simple polo shirt, clean but worn. He had his hands crossed in front, waiting. I opened the deadbolts. Clack, clack. The sound no longer tensed my shoulders. I opened the door. "Good morning, Mom," he said. He didn't try to enter. He stayed on the welcome mat I put outside. "Good morning, son. Come in. The coffee is ready." He entered with a shyness I had never known in him. He wiped his feet twice before stepping on the living room tile. He sat in the kitchen chair, not at the head of the table, but to the side. I served him a cup and gave him a plate with scrambled eggs. He ate with hunger, but with manners. I watched him. He had lost weight. He had skin burned by the sun and calluses on his hands. His fingernails, which before he used to manicure, now had that black rim that only comes off with a brush and powdered soap, the unmistakable mark of mechanical work. "How goes the work at Gus's shop?" I asked, breaking the silence. Roger put down his fork and sighed. "It's heavy, Mom. Gus is a slave driver. He has me carrying tires and washing parts all day. He says until I learn to distinguish a spark plug from a screw, he won't let me touch the engines. Gus is a good man, and he is demanding because he knows what he's doing. If he puts up with you, it's because he sees you're useful," I replied, sipping my cup. Roger put his hand in his pocket and took out a small yellow envelope, thin. He put it on the table and slid it toward me with 2 fingers. "It's for you. It's $75. I looked at him intently. "And this is the week's pay?" I already gave Miller his cut. The guy goes to the shop every Friday to collect. He takes almost my whole salary, but he hesitated, lowering his gaze. "Gus lets me work overtime on Saturdays washing cars, and he pays me that separately. I wanted to bring you something. I know I broke the bathroom door that time, and I owe you for the electricity and, well, everything." I looked at the envelope. $75. Before, he spent that amount on a bottle of wine at dinner. Now it represented hours of sweat under the sun, back pain, and cut hands. "I don't need your money, Roger," I said softly. "I know," he interrupted, looking up. His eyes were clear, without that fog of lies they had for years. "I know you don't need it, but I need to give it to you. Please, Mom, accept it. It's the first time in my life I'm giving you money I earned for real, without scams." I felt a lump in my throat. I extended my hand, that hand full of age spots, and took the envelope. It weighed more than gold, not for the value, but for the dignity it contained. "Okay, I'm going to keep it in an account for you for when you finish paying those people." "That's 3 years away, Mom," he said with a sad smile. "The interest is high." But Mr. Bruno kept his word. "As long as I pay, they don't mess with me." 3 years pass quickly when you have a clear conscience, I sentenced. We finished breakfast talking about trivial things, the weather, the price of eggs, the neighbors. When he left, I didn't give him bus money. He didn't ask me for it either. He walked toward the bus stop with his head a little higher than the last time. I closed the door and threw the deadbolt, not to protect myself from him, but because my security is my temple. But the day didn't end there. I got dressed, put on my best floral dress, and went out. I got into my car and drove to the old building of Ironclad Hardware. The for rent sign had disappeared. In its place, a hand-painted sign, large and colorful, read, "The Frank Miller Trade Center, Arts and Crafts." Getting out of the car, the bustle welcomed me. It wasn't empty. It was full of life. There were young people, many of them kids I saw wandering the neighborhood aimlessly, the ones one step away from falling into the clutches of people like Mr. Bruno. "Mrs. Grace, the boss is here," shouted Charlie, the camera tech, who now taught electronics classes on weekends. I entered the place. It no longer smelled of stagnant dust. It smelled of cut wood, welding, and future. Where the screw racks used to be, there were now workbenches. My decision not to leave the business to Roger wasn't a punishment. It was a seed. I used my savings, the money my son wanted for his gambling debts, to remodel the place. I called the people from my book of favors, the carpenter, the electrician, the plumber. I told them, "You owe me one. I don't want money. I want time. Come teach these kids to earn a living with their hands so they don't have to earn it with guns." And they came. Everyone came. Mrs. Higgins was in a corner teaching industrial sewing to a group of girls. Beto, the butcher, was giving a talk on how to manage a small business without going under. I walked among the tables greeting people, checking that everything was in order. A boy of about 16, with green-dyed hair and a mean look, was struggling with a jigsaw. I approached. "Don't force it, son," I said, putting my hand on his shoulder. "Let the tool do the work. If you push, you break the blade." Softness and firmness. The boy looked at me surprised and relaxed his arms. The saw cut the wood like butter. "Thanks, Mrs. Grace," he murmured, and I saw in his eyes a spark of pride at seeing the clean cut, that spark that was the true inheritance. Not a house, not a bank account, but the ability to fend for oneself. I sat in the small back office, the one that was Frank's. Through the glass, I saw the hustle of the workshop. I thought of my husband. He always wanted a son to follow in his footsteps at the hardware store. Roger never wanted to, and we, out of blind love, allowed him to believe that manual labor was undignified, that he was meant for bigger things. How wrong we were. By protecting him from effort, we left him defenseless against life. I had to become the villain of the story to be a good mother. I had to close the door in his face while he bled so he would learn to heal himself. It was the most painful decision of my life. A wound that still throbs on rainy nights. But seeing Roger today with his dirty hands and his honest money, I know it was the only act of true love left to give him. I took the book of favors out of my purse. I no longer note debts there. Now I note names of graduates, names of kids who got jobs, names of neighbors who donated tools. The office phone rang. It was Mr. Sterling. Grace. Just to confirm, the foundation papers are ready. Ownership of the building is officially in the name of the charity. Neither you, nor Roger, nor anyone can sell it. It will be a school in perpetuity. Thanks, Arthur. That's the best news you could give me. You are a tremendous woman, Grace. At your age, most people only think about resting. Rest is for when you die, Arthur. As long as I have the strength to lift a hammer, I have work to do. I hung up and went back out to the main workshop. The kids were putting away tools. Charlie was turning off the lights over the workbenches. "Let's go, Mrs. Grace." "It's getting late," said Mrs. Higgins, putting away her threads. We all left together, pulling down the metal shutter. The noise of the metal descending sounded definitive, solid. I stood for a moment on the sidewalk looking at the sign. The sun was setting, dyeing the sky orange and violet. I felt tired. My old bones complained about the day's hustle, but my spirit was light as a feather. Roger has a long road ahead. Maybe he never recovers the house. Maybe he never becomes a great businessman. But today he is a man who pays his debts and looks you in the eye. And I am no longer the little old lady who signs papers without reading at 2 a.m. I got into my car and drove back to my fortress. Upon arriving, I saw my neighbor sweeping her entrance. She waved at me, with that new respect earned in the neighborhood. I entered my house, engaged the Medeco deadbolt, made myself some tea, and sat in my favorite armchair. I took out the deeds to the house, the ones I almost lost because I was asleep. I caressed them. They are no longer just property papers. They are the declaration of independence of a woman who discovered that old age is not the end of the battle, but the moment when you have the best weapons to win it. I looked toward the door, that impassable barrier I built. I smiled. I changed the lock so I wouldn't be robbed, and in the process, I found the key to my own freedom. And that key, that one I'm not handing over to anyone.